The LA Alliance for Human Rights, which is a group of residents and business owners and even some folk, part of our plaintiffs were people experiencing homelessness, we knew that something was going wrong with the homeless system in Los Angeles. We had conversations and we heard examples of the city not doing a very good job in getting people off the street and getting them housed. We heard that LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homelessness Service Authority, had a lot of challenges in managing their contracts and having proper accountability and oversight for things. We knew that the county was, although they brag a lot about how they're able to provide mental health and substance use disorder treatment to people who are homeless, we knew that those services weren't getting out there. As we were going through the court process with our lawsuit, we always wanted to have kind of a forensic audit, really hire somebody to get really into the weeds and find out where every penny was going and how that money was being used to help people who are experiencing homelessness. And we knew that there were problems, we just didn't know exactly where they were. So because as we have gone through the lawsuit and the settlement process, the judge presiding over our case, Judge David Carter, he liked this idea of getting down to understand better about how this money was being used and how effective these programs were going to be. And he's used this phrase, he said, "I don't believe that the money is getting to the streets." And so what we did was we recommended that we had a third-party company come in and audit the city programs that are designed to help people who are experiencing homelessness. And we did that. So in May of last year, we had an audit. We chose an auditing company. They were called Alvarez and Marston. They did a great job. And what they found was they kept asking for information and they kept getting kind of pushback. They couldn't get the information that they wanted. And then they would ask about the City of Los Angeles budget and who they contract with. And all of those contracts pointed to LAHSA, the homelessness coordinator for the region. And then they started finding out more about LAHSA and they wanted to know more about how the county comes along and supports the city in providing mental health and drug addiction services. They've been asking, they've been kind of having to really fight for a lot of information and data. And so finally, this last Thursday, the court made this audit report public from A&M, and it really is damning. It shows that the city and LAHSA are in complete disarray in terms of how they are managing the homeless services in Los Angeles. And let me give you a couple of examples. They said, look, LAHSA pays for services sometimes without even contracts. And these contracts aren't even detailed in terms of what the service was provided and for how many people. The city has no real way to determine how much money they spend in total on homelessness services. And LAHSA has no way of holding the people that they contract with, a lot of these nonprofit providers, they have no way to hold them accountable. They have really poor financial oversight. And at the end of the day, they can't determine whether or not the services are being provided, if they're being provided more than once and billed more than once. The city is paying for empty beds when people are going homeless on the streets. It really is a problem. And so we're hoping that this report is really just going to tear the mask off of a lot of the kind of the happy talk that goes around in Los Angeles about how they're linking arms and they're doing everything they can. The auditors had such a difficult time getting information. They couldn't even figure out the total budget that the city pays and the contracts that they pay LAHSA. They couldn't figure all that out. So they estimated that the amount of services that they were able to really review was about $2.3 billion. There's more, but they can't find it. The city can't account for all of their homelessness program spending. So of the money that they were able to kind of track and do reviews on, they just found terrible performance, terrible lapses of oversight and accountability, and just a system that's essentially in disarray.
So does the city contracts LASA to deal with the homeless, or does the city directly have some programs coming to it too?
Both. So the three programs that this review took into account were the Roadmap program, which was a program, you may remember, when the court said, the court ordered the city and the county to provide beds and get people out from underneath freeway overpasses and underpasses. Remember that?
Yeah.
That's called the Roadmap program. So they reviewed that. They reviewed the beds and the services that went along with those beds that the Alliance settlement provided, which the goal is to create more than 12,000 beds in the city of Los Angeles to get people off the street. And then the other program that they reviewed was the Inside Safe program, which is Mayor Bass's flagship program. So they reviewed these three programs, they started following the money, they ran into a whole bunch of headwinds because they couldn't follow the money accurately. That caused them to say, well, give us more data, give us more information so that we can understand the performance. They couldn't get all of that information. It's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. And when you think about how bad the report is in terms of identifying sloppy financial oversight, identifying poor accounting practices and contract practices, identifying the fact that people are duplicating services and duplicating billing for those services, and the fact that you've got a poor coordination of resources. For example, when an outreach worker goes out, there may be another outreach worker that have gone out from a city council office. Because LASA doesn't have enough coverage or is inefficient in their ability to reach out to people, a lot of times the city council will have their own outreach workers. So you've got county outreach workers, you've got
so
LASA
they might be going to the
workers.
same people and trying to...
They're not only going to the same people multiple times, but because these referrals and because the tracking is so poorly managed and so coordinated, you get people on the street promise things that they never get delivered on. And so that's why we have people literally in Los Angeles on the street who will say, it's been 9 months, it's been a year.
Yeah, we've been hearing that.
Exactly.
That people have said, people come, they want to have the housing, but they come and promise, and then they don't come, or they come again, but there's no housing.
The tracking is so bad that, for example, and part of this, I mean, listen, nobody's saying that homelessness is easy to solve. We're not suggesting that. But for the amount of money that's been spent and the amount of time and the amount of opportunity that the city and the county of LASA has had in trying to just address the issues that are coming forward on the street, to have this kind of a result at this point in time after a lawsuit is absolutely ridiculous. It's wasteful, it's shameful, and in reality, it's deadly.